I'm Timothy Roberts, a assistant professor of criminal justice here at the University of Pikeville. Former police officer, retired from the Pikeville Police Department here in Pikeville, Kentucky. I worked most of my life at the police department. Married my wife after being a police officer for 2 years, which I encourage everyone to do. Is once you become a police officer, your life will change, and the people you meet afterwards will change with you. So my advice to always younger police officers, get married after you're already a police officer. That way they would know what the stress levels will be and how to deal with them with you. They would grow with you as your career develops. So the problem with being a police officer is the amount of time you spend away from your family. And it's always best if your spouse knows about that beforehand. Before you get married and get so involved that it can cause problems later on. My wife, Gina, is the upper bound director here at UPike, and she can tell you firsthand what a challenge it is to be married to a police officer. And my little boy, he's 3 now. The challenge with being a police officer with having a 3-year-old would have been too much, I think, to miss, because you miss family time being a police officer. You miss birthdays, you miss holidays, because your service doesn't end because of what the date is. And it's really a challenge in this field.
So in your career, obviously now you kind of in a second career, right, as an educator, professor, but as a kid, when you were growing up, what do you want to do as a kid?
Strange enough, I want to be a doctor. I grew up looking at medical books, medical encyclopedias, thinking that, hey, someday I would like to be a doctor. I'd like to be able to help people and give back to how you see your loved ones getting sick and there's nothing you can do about it, and you want to fix things. I've always been one of those people that wanted to fix others, help others understand, how we can fix their issues, how we can fix their problems, or how they go about dealing with themselves in life. And my idea was always that, I'm gonna be this doctor that just goes out there and just fixes everybody's problem, fixes their health problem, fixes their life problems. And one challenge led to another, and here I am.
So from doctor to now where you're at, I wonder, when we think about dreams, we all have dreams. A lot of students come in with dreams. If I were to say, hey, what's your dream job? How would you answer that?
My dream job is in vision of service. Service not only to my community, but service to educate others. And what I mean by that is I always had the feel like to fix everyone else's problem. I always wanted to go out there, and if someone didn't understand an issue or they didn't understand, hey, how do I do this? And I did. I wanted to help them understand it the best way possible. And so my dream job, was always to put other people first and help them not only be better at their profession, whether it's a police officer or now from this profession being a student learning the criminal justice system, but help them understand how they can be better individuals, how their ethical values can change, how their individual outlook on life can change as they grow. And that change that you have to do in the criminal justice field was one of those things that I always dreamed about someday. When I first started being a police officer and started changing things, I wanted to help people understand that change is a good thing, and you have to change along with everything around you and adapt to make yourself the better person, and that you can be, I might say.
So you've already told a fascinating story about growing up wanting to be a doctor, loving medical books, and then a long-term police officer to the point that you were able to retire in the profession and now as a professor here. But what happened in life? Did something happen in life that kind of spurred you on to these different paths?
Seeing when I graduated from college, after I finally realized that I wasn't going to be a doctor, I understood that I needed to go a route in service that would require me to not only have to learn things as I went, but sometimes you're not properly prepared for what you've chosen. And so I took the idea one day, I've been working long shifts, and I thought back on my career when I first started. We had a young officer who'd come to the station. He was having issues learning to adapt to his new situation. And he was fresh out of college too, and he was having severe issues. And so I got the idea that I want to help him in ways that I wasn't helped. I want to help him be better prepared when they come out. And so my idea comes that I will hopefully someday get to the point in my career that I can help others understand what all the criminal justice system, being a police officer, being a lawyer, being a judge, what all that entails. That way they can be better prepared from both a practical side and a theoretical side. That they can have not only one, but they can have both. And that they can take the idea of the concept of what is legally right and add that to what's morally and ethically right, to do it in a way that it will help others. And my idea is shot back from that. You can take all the knowledge in the world, I can teach you out of every book in the world, but it doesn't properly prepare you for what's to come. And that was my idea. That was my dream, was to someday get to the point where I could influence others to better prepare them for life and how life is going to kick them when they're down, and it's going to be rough, it's going to be hard. You're not going to understand things, but you can still get back up and with your head held high and say, I'm going to challenge this head on, and I'm going to get this done. That was my dream, was to get to that point. And we're so far in my teaching here in the 2 years as an adjunct, and now this is my second year as a full-time professor, I've got to that point that I think I can influence the younger generation of students coming out to where they will be better prepared in the criminal justice field than what I ever was. And that's something other that I couldn't fathom years ago, that I would be in this position that I am now.
So when you think about your life already, and trying to summarize a life is really hard because there's so many variables to it. But if we were to ask you to think about your own sense of call and purpose and put it into a sentence, right? In a sentence, what is your call or purpose?
My purpose my one sentence would have to be, help others when other people are not watching. And I feel we can do that in multiple ways. But it all comes back to your ethics. And if I see someone having a bad day, go speak to them. Help them when that other person is not observing you do it. And that would go a long way. You never know that later on in life you might be having that bad day, and then that person come to you and give you that sense of word of encouragement that they didn't have.
And as you think about your sense of call, do you feel like your job or current career aligns with that calling you have?
I think what I do here at UPike goes hand in hand with it. In all my classes, I encourage the students to always value others' opinions. Everyone has a different opinion, but don't criticize others' opinions, because they're coming from a different situation than what you are. They're coming from different life experiences than what you have. And I always put everyone into the idea, especially in the first intro class that they have here at UPI, I always put them in that mentality that they will strive to be neutral in every situation with every person. That no one chooses one side or the other. And that everyone shows each other compassion, and everyone tries their best to show each other the respect of where they're at and how they got here. Because you have some students that come from a long way away from here. You have others that live here. Those students don't know each other and where they're from. So I try to instill in the students that this is, to remain neutral, you have to value everybody and not just yourselves.
Well, it's apparent that you make an impact on people. I've watched in the last couple of years. You just really have an impact on students. And as you do that, obviously people have influenced or impacted you. So would you share with us maybe one or two people who've influenced you to help you know who you are and to get where you're at today?
I've had several people I could talk about. One of them was a police captain I had years ago, and if it wasn't for him, I probably wouldn't have been a police officer as long as I was. But he impacted me, and he taught me a lot of valuable lessons. And one of them was the fact that sometimes in life, people are going to do things against you regardless of how much you help them, and there's still going to be hate there that you have to overlook. And it taught me a long way, and I stuck with that through my entire career, that regardless whether that person hates me or they just do not like a police officer, we still have to do our be professional, do our job, and help them regardless. And that went a long way, and it's something I use now. You know, like when you're teaching, you know, a student might get a bad grade, and they might dislike you for it. But in the long run, you're trying to teach them to be better and better prepare themselves. And the other person, I had he was a wise person, I would say, but I had a martial arts instructor once that told me that just because you're better at something doesn't mean that you have to push your will over on someone else. You can always go and limit yourself when it comes to others. That way you will be equal, and that way you will not show that you're ever better than anybody else, and that you can help others achieve greater good because you do have more experience or knowledge than they do. And that's another thing I try to instill in my students here is just because someone is smarter, someone does better on a test, someone is quicker at writing papers, they don't have to necessarily put that out there and be that person that says, I done this better than you. And they can limit themselves also to where they can help others and get better and get them as equal as what they are, and use their knowledge to make everyone else better. It's like the old saying, you know, go where, don't continue the direct path, go make your own path so others can follow. And that's one of the other things I've always stuck with. Those two gentlemen helped me more than what they will ever know in life.
You know, if someone's watching this today and they think about your life and what you've already shared, and they go, oh my goodness, like you're living exactly the life I want. What did you do to position yourself for this?
It took me a while to get here. When I was in college, I never dreamed that I would someday come back here. I graduated from public college, which is now UPike. I never imagined I would come back here and be a professor up here teaching criminal justice. I just wanted to go out there, do some good for my community, do service, be a police officer as long as I was physically and mentally capable of doing. And along the way, I realized that you always have to have a backup plan for everything you do in life, in case situations arise that you don't have a plan for. And one of those situations is that in the criminal justice field, when you're a police officer, you're going to have bad things happen to you. That is stressful. And in that backup plan, I always put that if I ever get to the point to where I don't like what I do, and I don't like going to work every day, that it's time for a change. And I got to that point where I didn't like what I was doing, and I felt that I was making a worse example to my coworkers and to the younger people that I was working with, that hey, I'm not setting a good example here by not liking what I'm doing, so I'm going to change. And that led me to here. And then now I'm up here, and the atmosphere on campus, the atmosphere of the students, it gets me excited to come to class every day to help them understand that this is how life kicks you when you're down, and you've got to get back up. So my idea is evolving with not only your own life, but evolving with all your outside influences as well. Always having that plan that if 2 or 3 things go, backwards from what you've planned, you've always got a fallback plan.
So you have a lot of conversations with students, and back in your previous career, a lot of conversations with people out in the streets, right? Just knock and talk and just all this kind of stuff that you engage with people. And you encounter a lot of people who just really don't know about their own life and purpose yet. So when a person like that or a student comes to you and says, I don't have any idea what I'm called to do, what kind of advice do you have for them?
I tell them to think about their family and think about themselves first. And I always ask, one student that I had this conversation with last year, I told him that I needed him to do 3 things for me. Every day I want you to think about what you're going to do. I want you to think about how you're going to get there, and think about what your family is going to cherish if you do get there. And then just go out there and do it. And don't let nothing stop you. And if you have to change, or you have to lose friends, or if you have to evolve into something that is greater than what you have been to get to that accomplishment, then just go out there and do it. And don't let nothing stand in your way. And the student responded with, I think I know what I'm going to do, but I don't know how to get there. And so I told him, what happens if you don't know an answer to a question? And he was like, well, I research it, and I look it up, and I try to get a definition for it. And so I said, well, okay, think of life as the same way. If you don't know the answer to something, go to others, try to figure out that answer, look for a correct answer, or look for what you feel is correct, and then take care of it. And he did that. He's now chosen his career, and he loves it. And at the end of the day, a couple of weeks back, I made contact with him, and he was like, I love working here. The atmosphere is great. But the one thing that you taught me was to always look at others for help and show compassion to them as well. And that has helped me more than anything. Is always looking that if I don't know the answer, I can always go to someone and say, hey, I need help here, and vice versa. They do it for me, and because it makes for a better atmosphere. So